Hey, Andy XL back with another post FIFA 2026 World Cup podcast looking at England, the future. And this is part two. In part one, I looked at the 26 players who went to the World Cup and what future they might have in, say, the Euros 2028 and the World Cup of 2030. And in that piece, I basically looked back at history and took from that that 10 or more spaces might be available to players who did not make this squad to get into the 2028 Euro squad. And from there, maybe form the basis of the 2030 World Cup squad. And in this piece, I'm going to look at 35 names that might be the ones we have seen from their club form who could be the ones to take those spots, or and includes one or two really young players who might emerge in the coming years. Now, in this, I've not included any player who is currently 30 above, as the wealth of younger talent probably means that no Dan Burn type is going to emerge in the next 2 to 4 years. And I'm sure, as always happens, another half a dozen or so at least will emerge in the coming years that are not even on this list of 35. So, with the 26 players that went to the 26 this World Cup, and these 35, that gives you 61 names that could well be the ones England look to for future tournaments. So let's go through these 35 by position. Well, let's start with goalkeeper. Went all Harry Kane. Let's start with goalkeeper. Outside of the three keepers selected for this World Cup, only Jason Steele, Aaron Ramsdale, and Nick Pope have received recent call-ups, and none of them has a secure hold on a starting spot for a Premier League team. So no immediate challenger looks likely to emerge from those. Brighton's James Beadle, Tommy Simpkin of Stoke, and Arsenal's Tommy Setford are the current under-21 keepers, with Beadle leading that group right now. So if none of these six that I've named here gets first-team football, Messrs Pickford, Henderson and Trafford could be locked in as the England goalkeeper trio for the foreseeable squads. At right back, with Reece James struggling to stay fit, Jed Spence looking more likely to figure as a left back, and Konza and Kwanzaa, the sounder likes, more centre backs who can cover at right back. This is a position England need to find other options at. So, what are the other options? Well, here he is, Trent Alexander Arnold. He's 27, so age is certainly not a problem for him. When a player is as talented as Trent is, his name is always going to come up. He'll be 29 at the next Euros and 31 at the next World Cup, so age isn't really an issue. If Tuchel was prepared to look at a ball playing, passing fullback who is pretty adept taking set pieces too, and that was Reece James, why would you not consider Trent Alexander Arnold? But Trent first has to get his way into Jose Mourinho's starting lineup for Real Madrid, and then to shine when he does. If he did that, he could be right back in the running for right back, only to make not only to make the next squad, but maybe even to start. Tino Livramento, 23-year-old. Now, he was in this squad, but unfortunately got injured in the run up to the tournament. He was probably set to be the backup to Reece James, but if he continued to develop at club level, he is another that could be in the picture for the Euros at a position where that starting role is also still up for grabs. Final one at right back is Ben White as a 28-year-old. Might well have made the squad, but for injury. If he can show he is back from that injury and perform well for Arsenal next season, his understanding and partnership with Bukayo Saka could well get him back into contention. Left back options. Only one that I've got here, so maybe there's room for people that I haven't even considered yet to emerge. But the one I've got here is Lewis Hall, who's 21. Now, another youngster whose name must have been on the table until late in the selection process for this World Cup. I suspect he only just missed out to Jed Spence because Spence could play both sides. But the emergence of Spence, and with Nico O'Reilly ahead of him in the queue, Hall will need an excellent year or two at club level to force his way ahead of one of those. Right, on to centre back then. I have Gahey, Stones, and Konza as the leading contenders to start for England at the next Euros, with Burn likely at the end of his England career, Gerald Kwanzaa and Trevor Chalobah and the incumbents in the backup roles. But England would definitely like another candidate or two to appear on the horizon to be the long-term starting option at right centre-back and to back up Gahey on the left side of a pair. Maybe England could consider turning Nick O'Reilly into a centre-back, which I've sort of mooted before, given his height and talent. but can he transition to that role? People who are currently in a centre, seen as centre backs. Well, let's go through them. I've got five names here. I'll reel off the names and then I'll go into a brief bit on each of them. Levi Colwell is 23, Fikayo Tamori is 28, Josh Ashenpong is 20, Max Alleyne is 20, and Marley Salmon is just 16. Colwell has been in the England squad before and might well have been a contender for this World Cup had he not ruptured his ACL, which ruled him out of last season. If he can get back into the Chelsea lineup next season, he could well provide one of the answers England are looking for in this area, and certainly on the left side along, to compete with Gahey for the starting role. Tamori has flitted in and out of the England squad in recent years, but as possible backup to Gahey on the left side, as with Colwell. He could still have another run at it if he shows up well for Milan next season, but he is getting up there in years now, so he needs to start delivering right here, right now. Josh Achimpong is a younger, much rawer option than Colwell, but watching which of Chalabar, Colwell, and Achimpong makes most starts for Chelsea next season will be a good indicator to each of those three players' England prospects. Max Alleyne is at Man City, so any progression into the first team by him will certainly be noteworthy. And the fact that he's always hovering around the fringes of that team, under new manager, let's see what role he has going forwards. But if he was to start featuring for Manchester City, he'd have to have an England chance. And the same has to be said in a longer term sense of Marley Salmon at Arsenal. When 16-year-olds start getting into Arsenal first team contention, they must be worth not monitoring. Salmon did that last season, but has a lot of work to do if he is to get more playing time at Arsenal and therefore get into contention for the England situation. Into central midfield now, Declan Rice and Elliot Anderson appear to have the starting roles locked down, but with Mainu under some sort of cloud and Jordan Henderson unlikely to figure given his age, the backup roles are there to be had. So who can compete for them? Well, Adam Wharton is 22. I personally would have taken Wharton ahead of Mainu. He just strikes me as a player who could be even more suited to international football than the Premier League, and he looks a fine player at Premier League level. With the bigger Premier League teams showing continued interest in him, he could see his star rise further if he gets the opportunity to play for one of those teams. Alex Scott is 22. He's at Bournemouth. Scott was one of the young players taken to the States for pre-tournament games and has been on the fringes of the England squad for a while now. So he's another who needs to shine at Premier League level if he is to have a shot at making future squads. Miles Lewis Skelly, the 19-year-old at Arsenal. MLS may have played the majority of games for Arsenal at left back, but ended last season playing in the centre of midfield for the Gunners, and has always been seen at longer term as a midfield player. Competition is going to be strong if he is to continue to get starts in that role for Arsenal, but if he did so, that must make this highly talented youngster a bright prospect to be able to provide more quality and depth in this area for England. And his history as a left back offers versatility that can be oh so valuable in tournament squads too. Next up is James Garner of Everton, the 25-year-old. Had an excellent season for the Toffees last term, and that got him into the reckoning for the World Cup squad. It will be difficult for him to have as good a season as he did last year, but if he did, he will certainly keep himself in the mind of the England manager. Conor Gallagher, 26, is at his age. He was in the 51-man pre-tournament squad, but dropped out of contention as the squad was whittled down, probably in part due to Tottenham's struggles last season. If he can retain a starting role at Tottenham and they improve markedly, he could be a player that could re-emerge as an England possible in the next couple of years. On to another one now, 25-year-old Curtis Jones at Liverpool. Jones is, like others on this list, in that he is versatile, but is he good enough in any one role to earn a spot? Is he a 6? Is he an 8? Or even a 10? He needs to assert himself on one of those roles for Liverpool if he is to get into future England squads. Lewis Miley is the 20-year-old at Newcastle. With Sandro Tonali gone and Bruno Guimaraes looking to get away, somebody is going to get an opportunity in the centre of midfield for Newcastle next season. If that were Miley and he grabbed the opportunity and looked good, then he is another young central midfielder who could bolster his chances of England recognition as a result. Like Lewis Skelly, he has shown ability at other positions too, so that versatility adds another string to his bow. And that could be said The same about Rico Lewis, the 21-year-old at Manchester City. He seemed to break out into the Man City starting lineup and as a result uh, established himself in the England squad. Well, neither of those has happened though, so he needs to force his way into more starts for City to have any England hopes. Archie Gray is the 21-year-old at Tottenham. Like Lewis Skelly, Miley, and Lewis, Gray has the ability to play multiple positions, but has always been seen as primarily a central midfielder. Needs to get consistent starts for Tottenham if he is to be a contender for England squads, and that is unless Scotland come calling, as he is the son of a former Scottish international, Eddie Gray. So, which one of them is he going to play for first and commit his international future to? Right, they were the sort of people competing with that or trying to get into the roles with where Declan Rice and Elliot Anderson play. What about the advanced midfielders? So these are the ones that might be looking at the roles Anthony Gordon, Jude Bellingham, and Bukayo Saka look like the incumbents at right now. Morgan Gibbs White, 26 is his age. I thought Gibbs White was another one who was unlucky to miss out on the World Cup squad. His energy and running power could certainly have been used during the knockout phases, and he's a very intelligent footballer too. He tends to operate more on the left side than the right, so he may be one that provides a threat to Eberechi's Eze's position in this squad. 24-year-old Cole Palmer. With Morgan Rogers heading to Chelsea, it's going to be intriguing to see how he and Palmer coexist in that team. If they do not, then it could become a case of only one of them starting for Chelsea. And if that were the case, Palmer beating out Rogers for that role would would increase his chances of not missing out for England next time. But it's going to be, Palmer and Rogers. How are they going to play at Chelsea? Are they both going to succeed? Well, if they do, then they're both going to have a strong chance of getting in the next England squads. Which would be bad news for Phil Foden, the 26-year-old at Manchester City. Foden's career is drifting in his mid 20s, and the next season or two need to see him take a more prominent role for Man City if he is to avoid fading out of contention for future England squads. He needs to rediscover the form and talent he displayed 4 or 5 seasons ago to force his way back into England squad to the future. Right, a 29-year-old right at the top end of my allowable age to get in this piece is James Maddison, another like Foden, who at one point looked to be making the breakthrough required to make him a star for England, but injuries and inconsistency have stopped that from happening. At 29, he is pretty much in the last chance saloon in terms of making an international breakthrough, so next season has to be a big one for him for starters. And another one of these players who's in that sort of group that if we went back a few years, they were the next big thing, but it never quite happened. Mason Mount, the 27-year-old at Manchester United. Rewind 5 years ago, and a young Mount was at the heart of Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea team, but his move to Man United and injuries have resulted in fading out of the picture. Tuchel liked him then, and if he can somehow get that form back, he would surely pay attention to Mason Mount again. Right, on to a younger one now. Josh King, the 19-year-old at Fulham. Another of that group of young players invited to join the England squad for the pre-tournament build-up in the USA. King will need to emerge as the best player at Fulham in the coming seasons if he is to compete for a spot in the England squads. And this is an area where England has an array of talent to pick from, so it's going to be tough sledding. Right, a new player in the Premier League next year will be Hayden Hackney. He's 24. Hackney challenged Alex Scott for Championship Young Player of the Year 3 seasons ago and now follows Scott into the Premier League as he joins Everton. First, he needs to win a place in the Everton starting lineup and then carry that standout form he showed for Middlesbrough last season in the Championship into the Premier League. Definitely a long shot against such strong contenders in this area for England, but a big year with the Toffees could bring him into the thinking of the England setup. Back to the really young guys now, and that starts with Ethan Nwaneri, who's 19. And here is another of those taken to the USA for pre-tournament experience, which means Tuchel and co like what they see in Nwaneri. But he faces an ongoing tough battle to get starts for Arsenal against the likes of Saka and Odegaard. He may have to go elsewhere to get those starts, and if he gets them at Arsenal or anywhere else, he will need to grab the opportunity. And back to Arsenal again, Max Dowman, the 16-year-old, one of two young sensations in the last Premier League season. We are still figuring out what Dowman's best position is. Is he vying with Saka and Madueke for the wide right role at Arsenal, or with Odegaard and Nwaneri and Eze for the number 10 type role there? Whichever one it is, He has incredible talent, and he makes more and more starts for Arsenal, as seems likely in the next 2 seasons. He could well be in the Euro squad at the age of 18. And that brings me on to the other guy, Rio Ngamoa, 17-year-old at Liverpool. If Marcus Rashford is set to fade out of the England squad, Ngamoa could be the one to benefit. He was brilliant for Liverpool last season, and like Dalman, if he continues on his current path, he should stand a really good chance of making the squad for the next Euros, and maybe even in a starting role. Next up, go up to the older age area now. Um, 28-year-old Harvey Barnes. If Ungamoa does not progress as expected, Barnes may be one of those solid performers who might edge his way back into the England squad and courtesy of strong club performances. But at 28, time is running out for him to do so. So he needs a very strong showing next season. Right, a 20-year-old now with a familiar name, Job Bellingham. Jude's younger brother following the same path as Borussia Dortmund and is working his way up through the England age group levels. A strong season or two in the Bundesliga could have England fans singing "There's only two J Bellinghams." Right, another 16-year-old here, Ajay Tavares, 16. Tavares has dual nationality, so he could play for either England or Portugal, and is currently in the Barcelona youth setup. He has represented England through the youth levels, and like Max Dowman, um, we are yet to establish his best position. He could be a left winger or even a striker. With Rashford and Kane unlikely to be at the 2030 World Cup, England need both, so keep an eye on Tavares' progress at Barca for sure. And that brings me on finally to the strikers. Right, Dominic Solanke, 28-year-old. I just have the feeling we know what Solanke is now, and that is just short of international level. But if he were to thrive in a reinvigorated Tottenham team in the next 2 seasons, he does not have a lot of competition to beat to get a spot as a striker in this England setup. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is 29. Rinse and repeat the remarks about Solanke here, but even more so as he is now 29, and he may not have as much chance to shine at Leeds as Solanke could have at Tottenham. And the fact that Watkins and Tony were selected ahead of both of these guys for this squad is not a good omen for the Dominics either. So maybe we need to look at some younger options. And I've got two here, Divin Umbama and Shim Mueka. Whilst some may hope Liam Delap has a much better time at Chelsea under Xabi Alonso, it may be a couple of younger strikers that have shown up well for the England group that are the ones to watch at Chelsea. Mobama at age 21 needs to get into the starting lineup for the Blues sooner rather than later if he is to emerge as a contender for the Euro squad in 2 years' time. Muheka has more time on his side, but if either of these make starts for Chelsea in the next couple of years, they could emerge as options to back up Kane at the next Euros and maybe to take over from him come the World Cup. And as I say, let's keep an eye on Liam Delap as well, because if he's keeping those two behind him, he'll be doing something right. So that's it in terms of the 35 players, 36 if you include Liam Delap. So there's over 60 players there that contend, and I'm sure I've left some out that could have been included. But let me know by a comment if you think I have left somebody out who should have been included, and maybe I'll do another piece to wrap those guys up and what I think of them. So that's it from me for now. That's part two of England's future done and dusted. I'm going to start looking at the Premier League teams now and what their prospects might be for next season. And I'll do that alphabetically, which will give me the chance to first look at the reigning champions Arsenal. So I'll be back with that very soon. See you later.